Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh man, do we have a great show for you today. Let's just put it in perspective here. You have a business, and let's be honest, we all would like to improve business. And if you have a business that has a team, you want your team to improve. How would you like your team to operate like a team of Navy SEALs? Would that interest you at all? I'll just sit here and wait for you. Yeah, I'm seeing the hand. Yeah, okay, everybody's virtually raising their hands. Got it. Okay, that's outstanding. Now here's the thing. I know you want to do that, and I'm telling you, my guest, William Branum, and I, we are so happy that you want to do that. But look at me. It's going to take work. Okay, this isn't easy. Okay, you want to do it. You want to have a team that's effective and efficient and that can make decisions fast and in great ways. And you want to do that in your team. You want to decentralize command and control. You want to be able to make so you can rely and trust your people and that you communicate clearly, which is, by the way, not a one-way street. That's called preaching from the pulpit. Okay, by the way. And so you want to do all these things where you communicate and you want to and you want to have everything in order and you want to do it just like they do it. But the problem is we falter, because you're probably missing some steps, which is why I brought my guest, William Branum, along. He's co-author of this book called Mission Ready. Absolutely outstanding. Building high-performing teams from the battlefield to the boardroom. I do not care if you are the corporate folks who listen to me, the Fortune 500 folks. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I also don't care if you're a entrepreneur with a small team. It all applies. Every word of it applies. It's absolutely outstanding. We're going to get to him just a second. Before we do, let's do what we do every week, right? First of all, we're four-part people. We're physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual people. And I know William will say this. If you are not working on all four of those areas every day, you're not growing, you're dying, because we don't stay still. And so what we do on the show every week is we check in with you on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, it can't get any worse, 10 being it can't get any better, of how you are doing in each of these areas. So for instance, physically, how would you rate yourself in terms of getting enough exercise, eating right, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep? On a scale to 1, 5 being average, what's your number? All right, now listen, here's the deal. If your number is a 2 or a 3, okay, I don't want you to be alarmed. What I want you to use it as a starting point. This is where we build from. And by the way, we're not going from a 2 to a 3 to a 10. Let's just try to get to a 2.5 or a 3.5, okay? And it could be something as small as getting your hand out of the potato chips. I mean, it doesn't have to be huge. Stop the extra candy bar. Stop going to the machine and pulling out whatever garbage is in there, right? You know what? Bring a bottle of water instead of drinking the Coke. Whatever it may be. There's just little things that we can do, right? Take a walk. That'd be great for you. Okay, that's your first number. Second number is your mental intellectual number. The fact of the matter is you could sit on this book, Mission Ready, all day long. Matter of fact, you could sit on it all week. And guess what? You're not going to absorb a darn thing. You're going to have to be an active participant in reading it, right? And in growing in your mental and intellectual ability is actually actively participating and growing in your knowledge and wisdom and understanding of not only yourself, but the world around you. Right? Books are a great way. And by the way, I have no problem with audiobooks, but here's what I tell my clients. Read an audiobook, that's fine. But you know what? When you get out of the car, write down 1 or 2 things that you're going to take action on right away. And make that part of your plan for the rest of the day. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing mentally, intellectually? It's your second number. Third number is the emotional number. We break that down into 2 really simple steps. 1, how well are you able to control your emotions under stress and pressure? Ooh, that's a big one, right? I mean, somebody cuts you off in the middle of traffic when you're in a hurry. How is that? How's your little emotional center doing right there? Right? Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, right? But it's emotional control. That's the first part of it. Second part of it is, how well are you able to tap into and understand the emotions of another person? Oh, that's a tough one too, right? Because we don't always have the patience to tap into and understand the emotions of another human being. We want to fix the problem. We don't want to listen to the problem, right? And that requires us to do. So when you combine those two together on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're doing in the emotional area? And then finally, it's the spiritual. And I know some of you out there saying, well, I'm not really a spiritual guy, Jay. Yeah, you are. You are. You live by faith every day. Fact of the matter is, you drank your cup of coffee and you believed it wasn't poisonous. You pushed the button on your car. You believed it was going to start. You've made plans for the future, believing they're going to happen. They haven't happened yet. It's all living by faith. The sign on the in the walkway says walk, and you believe the cars aren't going to hit you. That's faith. But then if you remove the physical, mental, and emotional, what do you have left? We still connect on a spiritual level that goes beyond ourselves. And then what brings you back to centeredness and peace in the midst of your chaos? Is it God? Is it nature? Is it meditation? Is it something else? And the big question is, how's that working for you? And what do you need to do to change it? Those 4 areas are like the air in the tires of your car. If one of the areas is a little low, it's going to make the car hard to steer. If all 4 tires are low, well, over the course of time, you're going to damage the car. And speaking of someone who has all his tires at the right height, his name is William Branum. He's an experienced and highly decorated Navy SEAL veteran who has served for 26 years and cultivated a powerful mindset. He has extensive experience in high-pressure situations as a sniper instructor and leading teams and operations, ranging from protecting the interim Iraqi elected officials to directing action missions in Baghdad and Afghanistan. After retiring from the military, William has made it his mission to share the lessons he learned with others as a speaker, author, and business and leadership advisor. William's expertise in leadership and mindset has been sought after by organizations ranging from the small universities to Fortune 500 companies. You can learn a lot about him. And by the way, he's got several websites. I'm just picking one. One is called 5sealsecrets.com. It's the number 5 seal, SEAL secrets.com. Check it out. He is absolutely awesome, and he joins us today. William, welcome to A New Direction. Glad to have you, brother.
Thanks for having me on here. I'm stoked to be here.
All right. So the book, Mission Ready, which I thought was fantastic, by the way. And I have not talked to Brenda, and I know we're not going to get to her stuff today, but her stuff was great too, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. It was really outstanding work. So let's talk right away, I guess, about what this is going to take, because we're going to talk about some of the things that you guys do as SEALs in training and how it applies into the business world. But it's not as simple as going, okay, I'm going to walk into this and just lead this. There's some other pre-development parts here that have to happen. You and I kind of talked before the show, like, discipline and consistency. Can we talk about some of those things prior to getting into some of the meat and potatoes of what's going to be required of us if we're going to adapt some of these or put some of these changes into work in our businesses? That would be helpful, probably.
Yeah, for sure. But kind of before we dive into that, I just want to give Brenda another shout out. This book wouldn't exist without her, because we both spoke in an event I don't know, a couple years ago, and she spoke about her thing, I spoke about my thing, and it was a leadership centric event. And after the event, she had already written 2 bestsellers. And after the event, she, reached out to me. We were already kind of accountability partners. And she was like, so what are your thoughts on us writing a book together? You write about what you spoke about. I write about what I spoke about. And then we combine it and then go from there. And I was like, that sounds awesome. I don't know how to write a book. So here we go. And now that I've written a book for the first time, written my first book, I'm like, oh, I need to add this and this. And I'm finding all sorts of different places and areas that it applies, this gunfight leadership. But you talked about discipline and consistency. Nothing happens by accident. There's a saying that we use in combat sometimes: it's better to be lucky than good. But you don't get to be lucky until you are good. Luck is really when preparation meets opportunity. And another saying that a leader told me once upon a time, and said, if you're not there, you're not relevant. If you're not there doing the work, if you're not putting in the effort, no one cares. You're not relevant. You're absolutely not relevant. So how do you get relevant? You have to put in the work. You have to put in the work every single day. You have to create these small victories, which, you talked about my website, 5 SEAL Secrets. You'll get what I call the Get Naked Mindset, which is really my first book. It's an ebook. It's just I call it 5 secrets to help you think like a Navy SEAL, and that'll be a bigger book one day. It's my main keynote that I give. But coming back to discipline and consistency, you have to figure out what you want to do, and then you have to figure out a plan to get where you want to go. Every mission that we go on in the SEAL teams starts with a plan. Before we ever deploy, we have to train to meet a mission set that we say that we're capable of doing. Well, you have to have a plan for the training. You have to have a plan for the logistics. You have to have a plan for every single thing that you do. And it's no different from business to your personal life. If you don't have a plan on the kind of relationship that you want to have and how you're going to accomplish that relationship, you're not going to have it. If you want to live in this kind of house, in this kind of neighborhood, drive this kind of car, you need to create a plan, not just get a job and try to make a bunch of money. If the job that you have isn't going to meet your financial needs to accomplish that plan, then you need to find another job or find another source of income or create your own business to meet your financial goals, to meet your personal goals, to meet your relationship goals, to meet your professional goals. You have to have a plan. Everything starts with a plan.
Yeah.
And then once you have that plan, you have to start executing every single day, consistently, with discipline, even when you don't feel like it. Because there are most days I don't feel like doing it. Most of the days I don't feel like doing it. I just have to get up and do it anyway.
Right. Let me ask you this. You and I are mindset guys, and we come at it from the psychological background, and then of course you have that with your training as a Navy SEAL. Let's talk about the mindset that it's going to take for us to go into this, because we're about to talk about going into a gunfight and gunfight leadership and CQC, close quarter combat. And by the way, business is close quarter combat, oftentimes.
Always, yeah.
We don't think of it that way, but most of the time it's CQC.
I think every business is like going into combat, and if you can think about it like that, if you can have that attitude of like, this business is going into combat every day I come to work, every day my competition is trying to take me out.
Right.
There's competition everywhere.
Right. No.
You don't even know who your enemy is. They're always trying to take you out. They're trying to take your market share. They're trying to take your employees. They're trying to take your best performers. You're always going into combat.
Right. Sorry. Well, then, no, you're fine. It's just that, and I would even add to that, there's rules and regulations that all of a sudden get established that you have to pivot from, right? That challenge you in a different way, that either, you're going to have to move from somewhere, right? I want to talk about this mindset that's going to be required of us from a business standpoint, though, from your perspective, because there is this elite warrior kind of mindset that has to take place somewhere in there. It cannot be laissez-faire, and it has to be very clear. And at the same time, it's got to be prepared to win. Help us wrap our mind around that kind of mindset that you have, from the Navy SEAL perspective. We're going to apply this principle into business.
I think when you're talking about business and you're talking about trying to build something, I'll bring it from two different angles. But really, at the end of the day, it's going to be the same answer. Is are you doing this as a hobby? Or are you doing this as a profession or as a professional? Are you a hobbyist or are you a professional? The hobbyist is going to be the 9-to-5 guy who just shows up, punches the clock, shows up because he wants to, does the bare minimum and leaves. Same thing if you're starting a business. You kind of put just enough effort to make ends meet and then don't do any more work. The professional puts effort in. Even when he doesn't feel like it. It comes back to that consistency. I talked about before we deploy in the SEAL teams, and I know this will rub a lot of people wrong that are not Navy SEALs, that are other special forces. We are the most highly trained organization in the world. Period. The end of discussion. But to continue the discussion, the reason that we are is, we deploy for 6 months at a time, but we train for 18 months to prepare for that 6 to 10 month deployment. There's not another unit in the world that does the level of training that we do. And I don't care who they are, what branch of the organization, how much money they get to go do the job that they do. None of them are more trained than we are. Now, there are organizations out there that do one very specific mission, and they are better at that mission than we are. But overall, we're the most highly trained organization in the world because we take 18 months to prepare for a 6-month deployment. No one else does that. And if you take that mindset, that attitude of preparation, we prepare for 18 months, a year and a half before we step foot on the battlefield, before we go into business. How much effort are you going to put into starting your business before you even make your first sale? Because all businesses sell stuff. You don't make money unless you're selling something, correct?
Yeah, right.
How much effort, how much preparation are you putting into making that to prepare to sell your first product?
Right.
How much training, how much time, how much effort, how much research are you doing to get ready to make that first sale? Was on a call right before this, and the guy interviewed the founder of Hostage Tape. I don't know if you're familiar with that product. It's like a tape that you put on your mouth to keep you from snoring.
Oh yeah.
And like nose strips and like weird stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing proprietary. There's nothing fancy about that product at all. It's made in China. It's just what they, they built a brand. But what they told me, the guy who did the interview, he said that company, they work their P&L 2 years in advance to figure out where they want to go.
Wow.
I think they've been around for 3 years, and this year they're projected to do $40 million in sales.
Wow. That's
so
amazing.
They're doing all the preparation work leading up to the sell. 2 years prior to where they want to be. It's a different mindset where other people are like, there's one mindset of go figure it out and just like build the plane and like, while it's in flight. That's okay, but it's not ideal. There's a time and a place for that, but it's not the way you should be doing business.
Right. I mean, there are times we're going to have to pivot, and by the way, we're going to have to build a wing really fast, and we're going to have to make decisions on the fly. Yes. I mean, and you even talk about that. There are just moments where 100%. We have to decentralize, control and command, and you got to let everybody else kind of do it because we're flying hard, and we've got to make changes on the fly, and you may not be able to do it as a CEO. So yeah, both I think are important, but I think one of the problems is, and we're going to talk about this in terms of training your personnel, is that probably one of the things that you guys do probably better than anybody else is that before anybody's on a mission, by the way, right? Just because you passed buds, before anybody's going on a mission, there's training still involved.
So much training.
Right. And you talk about this, I think it's, I can't remember the chapter is what the name of the chapter, but you talk about that. One of the things that happens is that if we do something wrong in business, it's that when the budget gets tight, the thing that gets cut is training.
Yeah.
And it's probably the worst thing we could do.
It is the worst thing to do because people don't know how to do the thing that they're being paid to do.
Right. And that's, and we don't train very well because, I mean, you and I experience this every day when we interact with businesses. How many times have you said, like, even going to a restaurant, man, they didn't train their people very well?
Oh my gosh. It's so bad in a restaurant now post-COVID.
Right. I say it to my wife because I had worked in a restaurant for years when I was going to college and grad school. And I'll say to her, oh, they didn't train them very well. They missed it. And it could be something as simple as opening up a bottle of wine or, the way they talk, right? But every business, it seems that I walk into more businesses after others where you go, you know what? You walk away going, I don't think they didn't train their people very well. I mean, don't you see it? You interact with it. You have to. And
all the time.
Because of your training, you have to go, oh, they could use some training. And is it difficult for you as it is for me to not want to walk and find the manager and go, you shake them for a second and go, for the love of God, would you please train your people?
I did a government contract job for an Army organization after I retired. I didn't want to do it, but a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, I got this job, but then I want this other job. So would you do this job?" And I was like, "I don't want it, but I'll do it." It's a, it was good. It was good spending money. And so they brought me out to Atlanta to train me up to do the roles and responsibilities that I was supposed to be doing. It was good education. It did not train me on how to do my job. And I would continue to reach out like, "Hey, can you guys teach me what you need me to do? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to do?" At the end of the day, really what they wanted me to do was sell their capability to the Pacific Command.
Right.
They didn't want to say that. I'm like, "So you want me to do sales? So teach me how to sell your capability that you want, so that you get more money, so you justify your position, government stuff." And I'm like, "Just tell me you want to sell it, and I can go sell it, or teach me how to sell it, and I'll go sell it." I mean, the first thing I got to do is believe in it, but then you got to teach me all the ins and outs. What's so valuable about this thing that you want, this capability that you want more people to use?
Right.
And so, but they just couldn't wrap their head around it. They're like, "We showed you what we do. Like, go find us more work."
Right. Yeah.
How do you want me to find you more work?
Right.
Teach me how to do that. And they just couldn't wrap their head around what that meant.
Yeah. His name is William Branum. The book is entitled Mission Ready, Building High-Performing Teams from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. It's outstanding. We're just getting started. I'm just telling, we're about to get into a gunfight. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, listen, I hate saying this, right? 5 years, it's been about 5 years we've had Epic Physical Therapy as one of our main sponsors. And this is the last time they're going to sponsor this show, which we are really happy, because they're moving on to bigger and better things, and we could not have been more proud to be to represent them. I loved Heidi and Andrew and the team over there. They are great physical therapists, and of course we love them and we miss them, but they have been a fabulous sponsor, and I just want to say thank you to them. And listen, folks, I said it for 5 years, twice a show. I'll say it again. When you're looking for your epic relief, your epic recovery, your epic results, don't look any further. Go to Epic PT. They're absolutely fabulous. So go see them. And by the way, here's the good news. The good news is there's an opportunity for you to become a sponsor of the show. So if you're a business who is looking for I would say an inexpensive way to grow your business and get some marketing and advertising in a variety of different ways, contact us here at A New Direction. You contact me at the show, and I would be delighted to tell you how you can be a sponsor of the show. So thank you, Epic Physical Therapy. And also the other sponsor, of course, is Linda Craft Team Realtors. They've been with us since the beginning. Listen, they will help you transition in life. You say, "Well, wait, they're real estate people." The fact of the matter is, think about it. Every place you've ever lived has been a life transition. And you know what? They know how to take the stress out of that part of life. So when you're ready to sell your home or buy your next home, you know what? Check out the folks at Linda Craft Team Realtors. It's lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with William Branum, the book, Mission Ready, Building High-Performing Teams from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. And before I get back to him, I just want to say, listen, there's a bunch of you who are saying hi, hey, hello. David and a whole bunch of folks out there. Listen, I can't get to all of you, but here's what I'm going to say. Hi, hello, thanks for watching. We really appreciate you viewing us. William does, I do. We're thankful that you're watching us, and everybody who's viewing us live right now, thank you for doing that. And if you're watching us on DBTV later, thanks for viewing us. Tell the station that you love us. And also Coast to Coast Radio, appreciate you tuning into us there, and everybody on podcast. Thanks a bunch. All right. So William, let's get right into this gunfight. And you use this analogy both to help us understand what you have to deal with as a SEAL, but also the business part of it. And I love this chapter entitled Multitask Like a Navy SEAL, Shoot, Move, and Communicate. And I love it because you're about to break the myth of multitasking. Are you not? Go ahead, man. Tell us about the multitask like a Navy SEAL.
Yeah. So this is oftentimes when I go into organizations and I ask the question, who here is really good at multitasking? Everyone raises their hands. And I was like, okay, tell me how you're good at multitasking. And so everyone tries to explain something, and I'm like, okay, so here's the deal. I'm gonna break some bad news for you. There's no such thing as multitasking, because in a gunfight, there's three things that you have to be really good at. You have to be really good at shooting. You have to be really good at moving, and you have to be really good at communicating.
Mm.
And you can't do two or more of those things well at one time. And because when people say I'm good at multitasking, they're talking about, texting on their phone while driving down the road, smoking a cigarette, putting on lipstick, and juggling at the same time. I'm like, yeah, that's dangerous. That's how people die. It's really not a good idea. Or, there's an example I think I put in the book about, I'm in I go to my leader in the organization, and I have a problem with someone, and they're typing, they're working on some project on the computer, and I say, hey, I have this problem with Jay. He's really bugging me. Like, he picks his nose and he does all these other things, and he chews with his mouth full and with his mouth open, and I can't work with him. And my leader's like, yeah, okay, I hear you. We're gonna address that as soon as possible. They're not even listening to me. They don't care what I'm saying. They kind of care, but they can't divide their attention from the thing that they're working on, the project that they're working on, and listening to me. So because they think they can multitask. Mm. And so what they really have to do is either tell me to come back later so they can actually pay attention to me, or stop what they're doing, listen to what I have to say, address it, and then go back to whatever they are. So to kind of put that into gunfight scenario. So if I'm in a gunfight, before I can take my first shot at the enemy, first thing I got to do is I got to locate the enemy. Where is the enemy? Where are they shooting at me from? So I run and I take cover. Then I look and I find cover. Okay, I find that piece of cover, and it's going to protect me from the bullets that the enemy is shooting at. The bullets the enemy is shooting at me. I take that piece of cover, and then I stick my little head up. I look and find where the enemy is. I identify them. Then before I can point my gun at them and squeeze the trigger, I have to also make sure that one of my team members didn't take cover in front of me, because the worst thing that could happen is, as I go to squeeze the trigger, someone pops their little head up, and it's right in my line of sight, and I do the enemy's job for them, and that's not okay. So I have to look, where's the enemy? Okay, there they are. Where's my team? Okay, check. Where is there going to be any collateral damage if I start firing weapons? Is there women and children? Is there something else that we're not supposed to hit? Okay, now I can line up my sights and squeeze the trigger. So a lot of stuff had to happen before I took my first shot. Now, if I need to communicate what needs to happen on the battlefield, when it's time for me to communicate what I need to do or pass the word to what we're going to do, I actually have to stop shooting, look at the guy who's passing the word to me and telling me what to do, listen to what he says, repeat that back to him so that he knows that I understood what the message was. Because if I repeat something back and he says no and repeats something and gives me whatever that word is, now I understand it. Now that's two-way communication. If I'm just trying to yell some stuff out there on the battlefield while people are shooting, but they're never stopping shooting and looking at me to get the word, then there's no communication happening. I can say whatever I want as much as I want, but unless I get some feedback that they understood what I said, then it's not communication. It's just me making a bunch of noise with my mouth on the battlefield. The same thing for movement. When it's time for me to move, I have to stop shooting, look where I'm going to go, look for that next piece of cover. And when it's time to move, I get up and I move, or I crawl on my belly, or whatever I need to do to get to that next piece of cover. I can't effectively engage the enemy, and I can't effectively communicate with anyone while I'm moving as quickly as possible from one piece of cover to the next. Now, I can sort of point my gun in a direction that the enemy might be in and throw some lead down range. While I'm running, I'm probably not going to hit anything, very low probability of me hitting anything, or I can yell out some commands while I'm running, but it's not communication. So when you're in a gunfight, you have to be able to shoot, you have to be able to move, and you have to be able to communicate. But you can't only do one thing effectively at a time. When you're in the business, the corporate world, and the leadership world, you can only do one thing effectively at a time. There's no such thing as multitasking. You can do lots of tasks at a time, but you can only do one of those things effectively at a time. Yes, I can work on this email series and then stop, and then work on this other thing and then stop, and then go back to that email thing and stop, and go back to that other thing and stop.
Right.
But I can't work on the email thing and the website or whatever the thing is at the same time. Multitasking is a myth. It doesn't exist. Don't do it. Don't think you can do it. And one of the things I get from, like, I think the last time I presented to a group of businesses, someone was like, well, there is such thing as multitasking. What about the guy who can like play the banjo and sing the song and dance at the same time? I'm like, yes, that's multitasking. You got me. But that's not really being effective at, he's really just creating music and delivering it.
Right. He's really not multitasking, by the way.
He isn't.
It's muscle memory that is able to tap out a beat, play the music, right? Because if it's just muscle memory at that point. There's no
Right. He's not putting like the thought into,
right. There's no creativity of it at that point.
Right.
Right. Because we are serial processors, not parallel processors. Right. So we don't do things at the same time. We do it serially, meaning that we go, I do this, then I move to the next thing, and then I do the next thing. And maybe it's 3 things. And then we go back to 1 and we do that one again. Then we do 2 again. Then we do 3 again. And then we go back. But we're not doing 1, 2, and 3 all together at the same time, parallel. We can only do it in series. So we're really not serial process. And you have all the research here, by the way. This isn't coming from William. William's got research here that backs all this up in the book, which is what makes it fabulous for me, and I think for you too, is that he's got study after study after study that says, you know what, you're not multitasking. You're not at all.
No. I mean, there's so many studies out there that show that companies that encourage their employees to not multitask, to focus on one task at a time, are much more productive and much more profitable than those who are like, you need to do this and this and this and this and get all these things done. How about get really good at one thing, then get really good at the next thing, and then get really good at the next thing? That's what makes us really good. We don't do diving and jumping and shooting and all the other things. We break each thing down into one simple block.
Right.
Like I learned to shoot on a range, not like running through the kill house.
Right. I
get really good at shooting, and then I get really good at walking through a door and turning left, or walking through a door and turning right.
Right.
It's funny, when I put on these SEAL Leadership Challenge events, and I teach guys leadership through the lens of a gunfight, through running through a kill house, doing close quarters combat. When I put this airsoft gun in someone's hand and ask them to walk through the door, they immediately become like, I don't know, they're disabled. They can't walk. They start limping, and they do like, I'm like, so I will take the gun away from them and have them walk through the door exactly the same way. All of a sudden they can walk correctly. But I put the gun back in their hand and they're like, is it heavy? Do you need to work out? I'm not sure what's happening right there. It's, I added like one little thing. I put something in their hand, and then I'll have them come through with like their finger gun. Okay, finger guns. And then they get pretty good at finger guns, and then I let them hold the airsoft gun and then actually shoot targets and things like that. But it's amazing, like adding one small bit of complexity. You would think that we're all masters at walking.
Right.
But when I add some complexity to it, we become, we lose our muscle memory. We forget how to walk.
Mm. And let's apply this back to the business sector a little bit here, right? Because if we're presented with a unique challenge that we haven't prepared for, or we haven't trained for, we get paralyzed.
Yes.
And how many of us get paralyzed because of fear? Because oftentimes we live out of a prevention mindset versus a promotion mindset, right? We're more afraid of what we may lose than what we might gain. And so we're not willing to take an appropriate risk, right, to make that happen. And we're not willing to pull the trigger, right? We're not willing to shoot. I mean, it could go the other ways. I mean, you talk about this too, right? We can, so let's just talk about business and shooting. Let's talk about it and put it in perspective. So go ahead and help us out here.
Yeah. So, I talk about, gunfight leadership, and people are like, well, I'm not getting in a gunfight. Well, you actually are. So shooting can mean delivering your product or your service.
Mm.
It can be that simple. You could be an Uber driver. Shooting for you is you showing up to where that person on the app is, picking them up and delivering them to their destination.
Mm.
You're shooting as an entrepreneur, as an Uber driver, as a business owner. Depending where you are in the organization, you're shooting, you're delivering, you could be in operations. You're running the operations of the organization. For you, shooting is actually making sure it falls more on the communication side of it, like making sure everyone knows the processes and making sure the processes and programs are all running appropriately.
Mm.
You're not actually out there, doing those processes. You have people that are doing those things for you. You're more on the manager side, but it's still leadership.
So is shooting kind of like our day-to-day grind that we're trying to knock out? Is that how we can visualize that, or how would you
Yeah,
think?
it totally can. And I mean, I can even come back to context matters in this respect. Before the show, we were talking about relationships, and I was talking about a group of men who all have some level of relationship issues, and they're in a fight. And I'm like, sometimes when you're in a fight with your significant other, your job is to not shoot. We want to deliver, we want to tell them how we feel. We want to tell them why we're right. We're shooting, we're putting bullets down range. Meanwhile, our partner is also shooting bullets, and really our job at that point is to not shoot.
Mm. Mm.
Is to really shooting for you now is the listening.
Right.
Is not taking action, not reacting to what the enemy is delivering to you.
So sometimes in the business context, we can overreact, to what's going on within the business. And so we think we have to pull the trigger when sometimes we just don't need to.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, oftentimes I think one of the things that makes us, and I don't mean to say that we're all awesome, but we're pretty darn good at what we do.
Right.
Is it's our ability to not fire, to not shoot someone.
Right. Right.
Most organizations out there, military organizations, if they see a threat, they're going to engage it.
Right.
We're really good at not engaging, not shooting when someone else might shoot.
Right.
We might take that tactical pause, evaluate the scenario just a little bit deeper, and realize that maybe we don't need to put rounds downrange. Maybe we don't need to take a life that doesn't need to be taken.
Right. And so in the business context, maybe there's a situation that we really don't have to respond to.
Right.
Maybe
tactical patience
Right.
is huge. It's not easy.
Right.
But it's huge.
We may emotionally feel like doing it, but the right thing to do is not take action on this.
Correct.
Yeah, I love that. Moving, getting off your X. I hear this all the time from you guys talking about getting off your X, because you talk about the dangers of staying in one place too long. Talk about that, right, and then how it applies to business.
So I'll start with an analogy. So if you're in the desert, you're in the wilderness somewhere, and you come across two bodies of water. One is a sort of stagnant pond that may have, it smells terrible. There's no life in that body of water. And then on the other side of this road that you're walking down, there's like a babbling brook. Which one are you more likely to drink from?
The freshwater babbling brook. Well, look at what the adjective I applied that you didn't even apply. I implied fresh.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So you chose movement over stagnation.
Right.
Right. Because movement is life. In life, we get stuck sometimes. In business, we get stuck. And because we don't know where to go. We don't know which direction we should go. It's paralysis analysis a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And so in a gunfight, super dangerous. A lot of times you don't really know which way to go. And when I would train these new leaders to learn to lead in a gunfight, I would position myself next to them and never never undermine their authority. Like whatever call they made, if it was a terrible call, we would go with it, and then we would correct the action on the backside in the debrief. But in these, anytime that we sat still, we were going to die no matter what, because the enemy will always outmaneuver you if you're not maneuvering. Your job is to outmaneuver the enemy.
Right.
And, you know, if you're talking about being on the X in life, it could be, you know, a good friend of mine, Jason Redmond, talks about life ambushes, talks about getting off the X.
Yep.
And so I want to give him credit for that, because he talks about that all the time. I think he has a book about it.
It does. It's a great book, by the way. It's a fabulous book.
He's a fantastic speaker, almost as good as me. I can say that because he's not here to defend himself.
Call him out. Look, you know I'm going to call him out, right? I'm going to call him out on this one.
But you know, we get stuck on these life ambushes, and again, to steal his words, and we get stuck on this X, and if we don't move, I don't care what direction you move. A lot of times, movement is life. As long as you're moving in a direction, you start to see the battlefield a little bit differently. It doesn't matter what it is. So every time you maneuver on the battlefield, your perspective changes. Every time I walk through this room, it doesn't matter if the room in your house, I'm out on the road, my perspective of what I'm seeing changes. If you're standing in front of me and I walk from left to right, I'm going to see you from a different perspective. So I'm going to see the problem from a different perspective as long as I start moving. So movement is life. If I stay put and I never ever move, then you can move around me or someone else can move around me. And I'm always going to see the same thing and never have a different perspective. And then I'm going to die. Right. But if I get up and I start moving in a direction, I don't care what direction, the more you move, the better your perspective of the space, of the world around you, the scenario that you're in, the better idea that you'll have on how to solve that problem, on which direction you actually need to go. You may start moving and going in the wrong direction. You're like, oh, not the way I need to go. I need to go back the other way. Go back the other way. It's fine. But don't stop where you originally were. Keep going in the direction that you need to go.
His name is, I'm sorry, William. His name's William Branum. The book, Mission Ready, Building High-Performing Teams from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. Unbelievable. We're going to have to bring him back at some point. It's a great book. Get yourself a copy of it. I'm just telling you, it's so good. It's so good, and you can hear how great he is. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, Linda Craft Team Realtors. Let me just tell you something. LindaCraft.com, LindaCraft.com. You just check out the website. I think it's the most comprehensive real estate website that you're going to find. Not only are you going to be able to find listings, but you're going to be able to find other information as well. Things like, how to move with children, where a child psychologist has written an entire write-up about what it takes and things that you consider in moving with children. We've had veterinarians write about how to move with pets. And other things that we talk about, like staging your house. There's a show called Real Estate Right Now that's on the blog that interviews people who talk about real estate matters that matter to you. Everything from what the market's doing, the mortgage markets are doing, to little things that you can do to improve the look and feel of your home and what you need to do when you get ready to buy or sell. So listen, it is a one-stop shop. It's LindaCraft.com. Check it out. It's LindaCraft.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with my friend William Branum. I think I can call him friend. I feel like I can. I'm going to anyway. It's called Mission Ready, Building High-Performing Teams from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. David out there says, I'm getting the book. So thanks, David, for
awesome. Thank you, David.
Yeah, we appreciate that so much. I want to move on, but I can't move on from movement and moving off the X, because I feel like there is a life analogy here, and that I know that I personally experienced from the business standpoint. Oftentimes we get stuck on our X and cannot get off of it in life and in our business. And we keep doing the same things over and over and over again. And we never move, we never pivot. We keep doing it. And then because we're comfortable there. And it's easy to get comfortable in one spot in our life and even in our business, but it's also the most dangerous. And I think that's what you're saying to at least to me, is what I'm
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you think about what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
Right. Yeah. It dawned on me as you were just speaking. I kept going, How many of you out there, because I was this way, how many of you were out there and, you're just kind of feeling like you're stuck. You're not moving. Do something, right? You can recover if you're moving in a wrong direction, but do something. I think that's the message I'm hearing from you.
That's 100%. That's 100%. And I am I'm no exception to the rule, because I get stuck sometimes and I have to listen to my own advice and just start moving.
Right.
And a lot of times I move the wrong direction, but at least while I'm moving, I'm seeing the world differently. I'm seeing my options are changing as I move. Like if I don't move, I don't have any options. I move front, back, left, or right. But as I start maneuvering, as I start moving, my perspective changes. Oh, now I can see where I actually need to go.
Right.
But if I sit still, I have no idea which direction I need to go or how I need to do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's scary. It's scary moving.
Yeah.
That analysis paralysis is real. Fear creates paralysis. It's real. Like it's a metabolic physiological thing that happens to us.
Right.
And you have to just the way to overcome that is to actually start moving.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the other piece that paralyzes us, the paradox of choice, right? We have too many choices and we freeze because we don't know which way to choose.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying here too is go.
It doesn't matter. I don't care what you choose. Just do something.
Right.
And then see what happens.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. That was cool. Or that was terrible. Let's try something different. Let's not do that anymore. Let's do a different thing.
Right. Which leads us to communication. And you come right out and say seals die if there's no communication. First sentence, right out of the block of that whole thing. We think we're pretty darn good communicators, but both in personally and in business. We, sometimes as C-suite professionals, we have these meetings and we get up there and we pontificate about everything that we're going to do. And we feel that we have communicated it clearly. But from a Navy SEAL standpoint, that's just half of the communication. That's not real communication, is it?
That is not communication at all. However, I will throw a zinger in here, but I would argue that having a billboard out there can be effective communication. If you put a billboard out there to promote your services or product or whatever it is, if someone goes to that website, they see that billboard, they call the number or go to the website, that's effective communication, because now you have two-way communication. Communication is
response.
It only works if there's two ways about it. If there's a challenge and a reply. If there's only the challenge, like if a tree falls in the woods, does anyone hear it? Who cares?
Right. Who cares? Nobody does.
Right?
Yeah.
Does it make it? I don't. Maybe I'm not there. I don't care. I wasn't there to hear it. But even if I did, again, who cares?
Who cares? Right.
Unless it was about to land on me.
Right.
I heard it falling and I ran and got out of the way. Now I saved my own life. Or that sound of the tree falling, it announced I'm falling, by crackling and whatever. So I got out of the way. That was effective communication. The tree told me it was falling and I moved. Effective communication. Just standing in the C-suite, just saying, this is my vision, this is what we're going to do and whatever, and asking for zero feedback about what your plan or your vision or whatever is, that's not effective communication.
Right. Well, I think the one thing that you point out when I was reading this section and you were going through the gunfight scenario is there's this sense of verification of what's being said, right? So that the leader says something and the person they say it to is verifying so that there's clarity, because if you say break right and he says break left, okay, we got a problem, because that's not what you said.
That is not what I said.
Right. So there has to be this, it appears there's this the verification process, which, by the way, we do not do well in business.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. But I think what's just as important as that is the simplicity of your message. So if I said break right and you said break right back to me, I know that you got the message. But what happened is, if you can break, when I say break right, it means a very specific kind of complex movement that everyone on the team knows and knows how to do. However, I said 2 words and it tells the whole team what to do,
Right.
what direction we're going to do, where we're going to go, and how we're going to do it. Can you as an organization use 5 words or less to tell your team what they need to do? Sports teams do it all the time. Football teams do it all the time. They throw out a play, whatever the play is, everyone knows what their roles and responsibilities are. Whether it's football, they need to block a certain way. It's going to be a pass. It's going to be a run. It's going to be a whatever. It's going to be a trick play. Everyone knows what it is, and it's 1 to 5 words.
Right. Well,
It turns out to be something very complex that a whole bunch of people are doing, and then other people have to react to it.
Well, how many times have we watched football where the quarterback says kill, right? Which means that they're going to change the play. Everybody knows that word, kill, meaning that play that's been called in the huddle is no longer what we're running here, right? It's 1 word. We all got it, right? And then he goes through a series of colors, numbers, or sometimes it's a deck of cards but that communicates that to everything, to everybody else. But here's the thing that I keep coming back to. When you said that, I was thinking, William, well, this again comes down to training your team that we have a common vocabulary that we react from.
Right. And then, but it's one of those things that they would say to us in buds, is pay me now or pay me later. Pay me now, learn, figure out what these systems and processes are that are going to be super, uber efficient, train everyone on these systems and processes that are super efficient. That you got to pay a lot in the beginning. But as you get up and running, and as you start to scale and you start to get better and bigger and faster, and you need to be able to move quickly, and you need to be able to pivot quickly. And you'll only be able to do that if you have very effective, efficient processes and communication.
Well, I think, don't you think?
I mean, we're able to communicate non-verbally on the battlefield, with lasers, with lights, with hand and arm movements. I don't have to say a word on the battlefield in a gunfight. I know where that team is. I know what they're doing. I can communicate everything I'm going to do and not actually say a physical word. And everyone knows what's going to happen. But there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into having that simplicity, that efficiency of communication.
Do you think that in the business setting, that the reason that we don't get that verification back from our personnel when we are communicating, do you think that some of this has to do with, well, I don't want them to feel belittled, or we feel belittled because you're making me now repeat it? Do you think that's a part of it at all? Or is there another process in there that, from a business standpoint, where we fail in that communication aspect that we don't grasp very well?
I think it's a leadership issue, and I think it's an ego issue, and I think it's the culture of the organization. So one of the things I say to a lot of organizations is if you're not, especially the leadership, if you're not driving the culture of your organization, then someone else is driving the culture, and it's probably not what you want it to be.
Right. This has been fun, man. We've done our hour.
Wow, that was fast.
It really goes fast.
How'd that happen?
I don't know.
We didn't even scratch the surface.
No, we didn't. I would love to bring you back if you're open to it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Tell people how they can get a hold of you, man, because this has been great. This has been a lot of fun, and it's been great because I've got to bring you back for Leaders Get No Bullets. I've got to bring you back for that.
Because let's do it for sure.
That's a fun chapter. Tell people how they get a hold of you and reach out to you.
I would say if you go to the website you called out in the beginning, 5steelsecrets.com, you'll download a ebook, but you can check your junk mail, because sometimes my emails do go to junk. Reply to that. You want to have a conversation, we can have that conversation. You can reach out to me on Instagram, william.r.branum. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. any of the platforms. I'm pretty easy to Google. I've been on a few podcasts here and there. I think I'm well over 500. I have my own podcast, the Navy SEAL Mindset. But I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm looking forward to doing this again.
Awesome. Stay with me. Hey, folks, this is a show. You know what I say to you every week? You're in control of three things in your life: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. Life is going to throw you a lot of things. You know what, though? You can still control your attitude. Didn't say it was easy, but you're in control of having a positive attitude. Take control of it. Your effort is tied to your excellence. So regardless of what happens to you or how you feel, how excellent will you be today? That's your choice. Take control of it. And finally, we all get punched in the mouth or punched in the gut and we go down, but it's up to you to get back up. And you know why? It's because you're worth it. Get back up. We need you on the team. I'll be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great book. It's going to be another great show. It has to be, right? You had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Wherever you watch, listen, give us a 5-star review and a thumbs up on YouTube and let us know that you heard from us. As I say to you all over the world, thank you so much. And ciao, everybody.